I'll just start by introducing myself. My name is Lauren Badams. I'm an online admissions counselor here at Vermont Law and Graduate School. We are a small but mighty independent law school in the Green Mountains in South Royalton, Vermont. I'll let my team go ahead and just introduce themselves and say, hey.
Hi, good evening. I'm Katie Merrill. I'm the Dean of Admissions and super excited for our kickoff of our Masters in Public Policy. And I'm going to pass to Ellen Doobie.
Hi, welcome. My name is Ellen Doobie. I am the Admissions and Outreach Coordinator here at Vermont Law and Graduate School, and we are excited to have you here tonight. I'll pass over to Dan.
Hey everybody, I'll be the first Dan this time around. I'm Dan Budak, Director of Admissions for the Vermont Law and Graduate School. Really exciting to have the MPP as an option for our students going forward. And I'm excited to have Dean Dan Bromberg kind of oversee and introduce the program to you all.
Excellent. Thanks, Dan. And my name is Dan Bromberg. I'm the Dean of the Graduate School. And I am excited to share information about our Masters of Public Policy. So I will do a short slideshow, and then I will happily answer any questions that may pop up throughout the presentation or at the end of the presentation. So I will get going. So our Masters of Public Policy degree is a new degree here at Vermont Law and Graduate School. It really capitalizes on our intersection of law and public policy, which is something that we've been doing for years here. And we've decided to launch this degree to really leverage those skills that we have. So it's a 36 credit program. You could take it online or hybrid. Primarily, that hybrid option takes advantage of our summer programming, which is very cool. There are 2-week sessions. People come and join us in South Royalton, and faculty from all over the world actually come and teach those courses. You could finish it in 18 to 24 months. This is a very distinct Masters of Public Policy program, and I'll talk about that throughout the presentation. And at the same time, it's extremely flexible. So you could take it, where you are. You could take it at your own pace. And we really do think that it will lend itself to those of you who are both working professionals and those that are looking to go to school full time. So what makes this program distinct from other MPP degrees out there is really our focus on strategic communication, advocacy, and lobbying. And I think what you'll find is many Masters of Public Policy degrees focus on data analytics, which isn't something that you shouldn't know, right? You obviously need that foundation, but they do that without looking at, well, how do we actually communicate that data or that analysis once we figure out what's going on? So what we've decided to do with our program is to really focus on that strategic communication, on that advocacy, and on that lobbying, knowing that's both a skill set that we already possess here and we do extremely well, and that's a skill set that all of you will need upon graduation. So that's where we're really doubling down, and we're hoping that you could take advantage of that expertise that we're looking forward to sharing with you. The program is split really into 3 sections, right? So there's a core curriculum. There are select track courses, and students will select their own track and take that series of courses. And then there's experiential learning, where you get practice within that track. So we'll bring up each of those tracks. We'll show you the core curriculum, and then we'll talk a little bit about the experiential learning. So in thinking about the core curriculum, you'll see certain courses there that you may not see in a typical MPP degree. Our legislation and regulation course is a course that had been at home in our JD program, our law degree program, and we've really taken that course and adapted it for our graduate students. So it gives you a flavor of the legal environment that a lot of our JD students experience, but it really does focus it for our policy students. Lobbying and government affairs, so that really hammers home that strategic communication, advocacy, and lobbying. Our introduction to policy research and writing. Once again, this is how do you communicate policy? How do you translate research into something that's effective, impactful policy writing? Communication, leadership, and advocacy, once again in that space. Policy design. So when we think about policy design, we're really starting to think about the beginning of the process, right? So before it gets to a legislature, before anyone's voting on anything, how do you bring advocates together? How do you bring industry groups together? And how do you design policy so it will see a successful path through the legislature, through the executive branch, and ultimately all the way through implementation? Introduction to Public Policy is obviously our foundational course. And then structural inequality. And this is something that we want to make sure that our students have a good sense that economic policies at points may have inequality built into them. So how do you account for that when you're assessing policy? How do you account for that when you're evaluating policy? And how do you make sure policy is inclusive and it is equitable for all of those that it is intended to serve? So the tracks that we're going to highlight today, we're really going to highlight 4 tracks. And then the 5th one is create your own track. So really flexible in that space. So we have an animal protection policy track. We have a clean energy track. We have a food and agriculture and law and policy track. And we have a justice reform track. And what this has done is really taken our area expertise, so our centers, alongside what we call in law schools our clinics, which are experiential learning opportunities. And we've packaged them within a Master's of Public Policy, and we've tailored them so that you can all be effective advocates and policy entrepreneurs within these various spaces. So it is really at the nexus of both law and policy that these tracks are being developed. So in looking at the animal protection policy track, I won't go into all of the courses, and this is just a sample of some of our courses. But you can see the required track courses are animal protection policy and the science of animal law and policy. And then there's going to be a slate of electives that students can take. And what's really important to know is these aren't isolated in that they're connected to practical experiences within the space. And we have expert faculty who are world-renowned faculty teaching these types of courses. We were actually the first law school to offer animal protection policy. And now that we're able to offer this as part of our MPP degree, it really is going to give our students a distinct advantage in the marketplace if this is the track that you want to pursue. So our clean energy policy track is really built out of our Institute for Energy and the Environment. And a lot of what that institute does is bring sustainable energy to lower income communities. It's part of its mission, it's part of its DNA. So a lot of what our students are doing is they're learning these foundations within their courses, and then they're applying them through those 5 experiential learning credits. So in this track, we have energy policy in a carbon constrained world, I believe, and energy regulation, markets, and the environment. And then once again, you're going to have a slate of courses that you can choose from, depending on your interest level and depending if you want to pursue a specific field. I would say a lot of our students in this space end up either in government agencies, so FERC, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, they might end up at the EPA, or they might end up as local advocates working in the energy space, looking to build and bring in renewable energy to areas that may or may not have access to those various innovations. Next is our food and agricultural policy space. So we have a center for agriculture and food systems, and this center really does everything from labor related to the agricultural system, to food distribution in relation to the agricultural system, and everything in between, right? So you're looking at issues related to regulation, to food security, to water resources, as these courses are pointing out. The only required course in this track is this Intro to Law and Policy in Food and Agriculture. And then students really could choose from an array of courses. So for example, if you were a hybrid student, we offer the Farm Bill course over the summer, which is taught by someone who has direct experience drafting and working with the legislature on building the Farm Bill. So our students get exposure to that. The beauty of this space is that it is very complex. It cuts across a number of different areas, including environmental policy, labor policy, immigration policy, right? All of these various aspects that touch on food and agricultural policy. And our goal is to give our students exposure to all of those aspects so you could walk out with this very well-rounded understanding of what food and ag policy really looks like. And then lastly, what I'll talk about is our justice reform policy. So this is primarily staffed by our faculty in the Center for Justice Reform. And really what we're looking at here are various ways to reform the criminal justice system. So a lot of what we do is related to restorative practice, or what's referred to as restorative justice. And what we're looking at there are alternatives to the punitive criminal justice system, right? So what might this look like if we don't take the traditional path? What does drug policy reform look like, right? What does a drug court system look like? How do we deal with this? So our faculty have both practical experience in this space and then years of teaching within this space that really do offer you all a very, I would just say, wide experience and exposure to alternatives to what we think of as our traditional justice system. So what careers can you pursue? So you could look at the list, right? A number of different careers you could really pursue. We could think about various political organizations that you could engage in. Obviously, policy advocacy. You could be a specialist, right? So if you were to zoom into a congressional staffer related to justice reform, right? You would walk out of here with those skills. Ultimately, I think what's most important for you to recognize is that you are going to be policy ready, that the exposure to the experiential and practical experiences that you'll have while you're with us, plus the exposure to those foundational elements you're going to get in the classroom, are going to allow you to walk out of our programming and get a job and feel ready for that job. And that really is key to our programming, that we don't want to send students out that feel like they're not prepared to engage. Our goal is that when you graduate from our programs, you are ready to engage in the policy world in an impactful and effective way.
Dan, our next slide is really covering application deadlines. So we can hit on that and then circle back for diving into further questions, if that sounds good.
That sounds great.
All right. Yeah. So fall term 1 application deadline coming up in July, and classes will start both residentially and online on August 26th. So everything will get geared up for fall then. And then not too long after that will be the start of our spring semester. So moving forward, those will be the opportunities to begin as an online student at the beginning of the fall semester, the spring, and the summer semester. That is all for slides. Awesome.
And one thing to think about, depending on where you start, we're very cognizant of our new classes coming in and our students starting. So we will, this is mapped out for you. So you're not starting in the middle of a semester and not knowing, what to take or where to go. We've been very thoughtful about how you'll track through that program, regardless of where you start. and providing you the support that you need as you move your way through the programming.
I think that variety of entry points just echoes what you were saying about flexibility. In terms of when is the right time for you to begin on a journey like this, not having to wait for that single point, in a traditional fall start for a program. So yeah, flexible, absolutely. Dan, I'd love to hear what your favorite part of this new program is. Dan Bromberg. Sorry, Dan Budek.
Yeah, sure. I mean, so for me, there are really two things related to this. First is this focus on strategic communication, advocacy, and lobbying. I think that is what so many of our students want to do. And I think so frequently programs focus on statistics and quantitative methods and how do you understand numbers. And the truth is, a lot of our students want to communicate those things. They don't want to actually crunch those numbers. And that's not to say that we're not going to teach you those skill sets, right? Those are equally as important. But the idea of not only communicating those numbers, but understanding the political environment to determine if those numbers will even work is really essential to being an effective policy advocate. And that's what's exciting about this program, is that we're going to give our students those skills to know if this is an effective policy that can actually get through the political landscape, or just if on paper it might work, right? We want our students to know what is distinct from one and the other. So that's what I'm really looking forward to. The other part of this is this intersection of law and policy. And this is rare, right? There are not that many public policy programs that are so deeply engaged with Juris Doctorate programs or law degrees. So what happens in our classroom is we have students that are looking to both regulate and litigate, various pieces of legislation. And we have students that are looking to develop that legislation, right? So those conversations that happen in the classroom, and I would say the mastery of our professors and our faculty to manage those conversations really just enriches this experience for our students to a degree that I don't think, really does exist at other institutions. So those two things are really exciting, and I think a really cool opportunity for our students.
I know, I totally agree. I think the variety of perspectives you have within a single class, even the types of students that make up our student body are coming from various backgrounds, different training, maybe a social services background or environmental studies, and they're all coming together and collaborating and thinking about these issues that affect so many different areas of different fields at once. That intersectionality is unavoidable. And I think having that diverse student body, some are coming maybe directly out of undergrad, others have had a full career in one field and are looking to make a switch. And that, I think, just really creates such a cool landscape for learning from each other, but this working through these different issues with so many different creative perspectives. So I think that's a really cool thing that we have on campus and online and in each of our classrooms, no matter what that delivery is. Now, this might be something that people are wondering, is the program specific to Vermont? Is that going to be an area of focus? And if they're interested outside of that region, is this still the right program?
It's a good question. I think where we are, is we're building a place-based program that is specific to the community that you are coming from, right? So our goal is to say, where you live is your place and your place-based skills that you need. And what we're trying to do is help you develop those skills for the community that you live within. Right. So I don't want to devalue place. I actually think place is extremely important. in the way that we deliver our programming, but what we're able to recognize is that our students are coming from all over the world, and what someone might need in a particular location in Louisiana might look extremely different from what they need in northern Maine. So yes, this program can cater to all of those students while also catering to those students who happen to live in Vermont. The goal is to say, these are the skills, right? These are, the tactics you need while engaging in policy. Now let's apply that to your community. Let's apply that to your world. Let's apply that to your career path. And let's give you those opportunities to practice those with us. So then you could take that home to your place and be an effective change maker and have the impact that you need in your home community.
Awesome. Thanks for answering that.
Sure.
If we have any other questions, you're welcome to put them in the chat or the Q&A, or if any of our panelists want to ask Dean Bromberg any other questions, we can certainly save some time for that.
I'm curious if you can share a little bit more about the experiential learning side of things and what you're foreseeing in those types of opportunities.
Yeah, thanks for that, Dan. So right now, Vermont Law and Graduate School has a robust set of clinical experiences for our law students. It's unique to law schools, right? Maybe outside of medical schools that might do something similar. The beauty of what we're able to do with our Masters of Public Policy program and our other master's degree programs as well is integrate our students into that clinical experience. So let me give you an example. We have some clinics that are purely litigation-based clinics, right? Those might be in one section, but then we have other clinics that do advocacy, they do small business development, they do sustainable energy projects. And all of those areas need support from the policy space just as much as they need support from those that are trained in lawyering or litigation or transactions. So what ends up happening is there's this beautiful relationship between our policy students who are able to say, look, this is a low-income community that needs support to develop solar, energy, and the zoning requirements are making this really challenging. What are the policy solutions we could throw at this problem? And then our law students can work on those transactional documents, right? And it's not quite as clean and isolated as that, but it is that relationship where those students are able to bounce that off of each other with a faculty member who's guiding that process. So ideally, Dan, that's what it's going to end up looking like. We already integrate all of our master's students into some of these clinics. And then ideally, we'll be building those out so our students have more opportunities to engage, in substantive policymaking.
That's great. Thank you.
Sure.
As you're talking about students, remaining in their communities and having that sense of place, I'm feeling like a lot of the focus of maybe their experiential projects or really putting into practice what they're learning in their classes can take place live, in their own communities as they utilize the support of their faculty and the experience they're gaining from clinics and centers and institutes within the program to begin affecting that change in their community right away.
Yeah, you're spot on, right? I mean, I think that's so spot on. So the clinics are one example of what we do in the experiential space. We also have loads of students that are engaged in externships, or sometimes people might think of them as internships, right? But these are, you are out in your community, engaging in a project, being supervised by a faculty member. And that is another pathway for our experiential learning. So, a lot of this it's based on your needs as a student, based on your goals as a student. And our goal is to support you in that endeavor. right? Provide you the tools that you need, provide you the guidance that you need, and then stand by you as you actually go off and do these activities. The more exposure you get to the actual doing, the better. And that's why we love building in, these 5 experiential credits to this program.
Yeah, I feel like you don't necessarily have to spend them all in one place, in terms of what's sort of making up that whole piece of the curriculum. So that's pretty cool to be able to diversify in a program like this.
Yeah, no question.
Fantastic. Well, I've loved having you walk us through the program in this detail, and excited sort of as we continue to build on what we have sort of laid out before us. So excited for the future.
Awesome. Well, thank you, everyone. We really appreciate you coming.
Yeah, so glad everyone can join us. We'll be happy to answer questions. We'll send out more information after tonight's recording, and look forward to connecting with everybody very soon. Thanks everybody for joining us.